Welcome to the Primo's Musings podcast.
Hello, good evening, Dan. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
All right. Hope you're enjoying your conference and also enjoyed the two games that we had yesterday. I was fully glued to both the games. So let's get your initial, I would say, recap from the semifinals, and then we'll turn our page to the final that'll happen tomorrow night between UConn and Purdue. So let's start with your analysis on the first game between Purdue and NC State, and then we go to UConn and Alabama.
Yeah, I thought the Purdue NC State game, although NC State kind of hung in there throughout most of the game, they were, kept it within striking distance. You never really felt like they were going to they never felt like they quite had a chance. Just Purdue always seemed to just always have the upper hand. My prediction when we did our podcast a few days ago as the preview was to pick NC State in this game. I just thought NC State was kind of on a mission. They had the momentum going. I thought they would somehow figure out how to circumvent Edey, and the Burns would figure out how to score on him and kind of run the offense through Burns once again, but just never happened. Edey was just too tough. He had a big game once again, kind of nullified Burns' presence. Edey was able to kind of score whenever he really needed to, and his defense was pretty tough as well. And then the Purdue guards came through with some clutch three-pointers as well when they had to as well. And, NC State made a couple runs, kept it, at least worth watching up until the end. But NC State could really never really make Purdue sweat too much and get too worried. So that's the game. Unfortunately, like I said, I had picked NC State. Didn't quite go as I expected. But Purdue is through to the final, like that was their plan all year. After what happened the last couple of years, they've been dying to get back.
Mm-hmm. I think I will go before we turn our page to UConn, Alabama. I thought the same thing. I knew the game would be close, but I think two things that kind of did not go in NC State favor. One, Burns got into foul trouble very early, and they pretty much nullified, the matchup that everyone was talking about with Edey. And Edey had a, kind of a field day in the first half. But in the second half, Edey wasn't that. Purdue's guards definitely shooting some threes, people coming off the bench. And, even though Braden Smith didn't have a great game, he had two turnovers. He had two backcourt violations in the same half. But to Purdue's credit, they kind of hung in there. It was a close game even in the second half, but once Purdue started pulling away, it was just a matter of time. And then NC started panicking. Horn actually played very good. I mean, he actually kept NC State in the game when Burns was out with foul trouble. But give credit to Purdue Boilermakers for getting to the final, and they get to face UConn, and UConn was in a big dogfight with Alabama. And your take on that matchup? It was very close. It was 56-all in the second half, but Alabama was in the game in the first half. They were shooting lights out on three-pointers. So your thoughts on where UConn just won the game yesterday?
Yeah.
Took it away from Alabama.
Yeah. So, like you said, we kind of predicted this one the same way. We kind of both thought, UConn would win, we thought it'd be both said it'd be a close first half. Alabama would kind of hang in there, we thought, and then UConn, like they always do, either makes adjustments at halftime or just wears other teams down. I'm not sure what exactly it is. Probably a little bit of both, with Hurley making great adjustments at halftime and then UConn just wearing teams down, with their tenacious defense, and they just keep coming at you on offense. This game, like you said, started out with the Alabama just hot from three-point range. They shot about, 70% maybe in the first half from three-point range. And is that right?
Yes, 73%. Right.
Wow. And Sears, the great second-team All-American guard on Alabama, he was perfect from the field for partially through the second half for quite a ways too. I think he was 7 for 7 or 6 for 6, perfect from 3-point range until he missed one, at some point in the second half. So he was on fire. He was great from the outside. He drove effectively, had some, took it to the hoop, and really kept Alabama in the game, along with the transfer from I think North Dakota, Nelson. Yeah, he had a nice game too. Made some nice shots, kept them in there. But then and it was also what was interesting. There was quite a game of swings in that second half. There was 3 7-0 runs respectively, all back to back with Alabama, UConn, and Alabama. I'm sorry, UConn, Bama, UConn. A lot of runs back and forth. So a lot of momentum swings. But then UConn just kind of really clamped down those final 5, 6, 7 minutes. Caravan had some nice key buckets at the end. And they also just ran some nice kind of just pick and rolls with Klingon going to the hoop with some big dunks. The backup center also, Johnson, right? Samuel Johnson. He had some nice big dunks there too on pick and rolls, and they just did what UConn does, just kind of wear you down, and just kind of prevailed at the end. With relative ease. It wasn't really a close game at the last few minutes.
Yeah, so, I think the story of the game here. Yeah, go ahead. The story of the game to me was Steph Castle, the freshman. One of the things is that they dared him to shoot the three, and I think they didn't want to give the threes to Spencer or Newton, but they dared him to shoot the three, and then he actually scored 21 points or something like that. Not only a great scorer, but also an excellent rebounder and someone who goes to the hoop. And I think in the second half, Steph Castle did something which was completely different from the first half, which is he was actually trying to drive into the paint and draw some fouls and then passing off to Klingon or Samson Johnson. And then Spencer came up big in the end, hit some threes. I mean, UConn was missing a lot of threes in the first half. They were actually 0 for 8 at one stretch on runners, but give UConn credit. It was pretty nervous moments as a UConn fan, watching it, because it was a very close game. Like I said, 56 all, and then they eventually pulled away, and that's another double-digit win for UConn. Even though the score was much closer than what it was. So then we get to the final game. It's Purdue and UConn, Edey versus Klingon. But where do you think this is going to go, and your prediction, and then I'll wrap up with mine.
Yeah, so we kind of got the matchup that people wanted all year long, dream matchup with these are 2 of the 3 teams that really traded off being number 1, with the third team being Houston, which obviously went out a few rounds ago. But these are 2 of the best teams in America all year long. This is Edey's second year in a row as unanimous, I think, AP Consensus Player of the Year. UConn going for a repeat, going for their 6th title since 1999. It's crazy. Hurley going, for his second championship as well. So this would put him in Hall of Fame coaching status already if he were to get 2 titles here. And so as far as the way I see this one going, I think it's going to be a close first half. Both teams feeling each other out a little bit. Edey trying to establish his, some plays in the post, kicking it out for some 3-pointers. I think it'll be close up through kind of midpoint of the second half. And then I see this game going the same way that it went against Alabama, with UConn just being too tough, pulling away down the stretch. They have just too many weapons, whether it's going to be a 3-pointer that is the nail in the coffin, or Castle or someone else taking it to the hoop. There's just too many options that UConn team has to wear you down. So I think it's going to be UConn raising another banner in Gamble. Like I said, it's back-to-back, and there's 6 total. So that's the way I see this one going.
Yeah, I do see it going that way too. I think it all depends. Like if Klingon gets into foul trouble, that's where I see the game, turning in Purdue's favor. One thing that Purdue has to do, they do hit a lot of threes. And until the Alabama game, or until the first half of the Alabama game, teams have only scored 23% on 3-pointers the last 4 games against UConn in the tournament. Alabama just shot 73% in the first half, but then the second half, they kind of cooled off. I think they only hit 3 3-pointers. Purdue hit a lot of 3-pointers against NC State, but I don't see a team like Purdue scoring 10 to 12 3-pointers. And they might have to do that if they have to win. I mean, they have to have Edey have a big game, maybe like 30 points and 15 rebounds kind of a night, and then them shooting 3-pointers too. It's going to be a close game. I think of all the teams, I think this is going to be one of the biggest, I would say, from a matchup standpoint. Klingon and Edey will be the biggest matchup. The one thing is that Klingon is much faster on the court when he runs a fast break. Also is that UConn limited Alabama's, they didn't have any transition offense. So let's see if Purdue can generate that. So Keys, if Purdue has to win, I would say Edey having a big game, them shooting 3-pointers, and then having a good transition, plus also good defense. I think Purdue almost has to play perfect to win the game tomorrow. And UConn, I mean, I think they have all the weapons, with Newton and Spencer and Castle, and then Klingon. And then, if Klingon does get into foul trouble, I do see that Hurley could go to a small lineup, which they have. Where in the, when Klingon was out for 6 games with injury, they can easily go with a small lineup. Now that's going to be a tough thing stopping Edey at the paint, but they could do that. But again, Edey also has to go and take some breaks. I don't think he lasts and I think he did play the entire half, I think, or entire game last.
Yeah, he plays a lot of minutes compared to.
He did play a lot
Klingon,
of minutes, which is
he does.
But that's where I see it. I mean, that's the way I'd like to see it go for UConn to be a back-to-back champion since Florida did it in 2006 and 2007. And something I heard on PBS Sports today that Florida went back-to-back with 7 players returning from the previous, but UConn, as you know, they lost 3 players. They loaded back with some excellent transfer portal. Spencer, I mean, Spencer seems like a UConn guy for life. I mean, I know that our good friend P. Suckmeyer may not really like it, but he does exhibit the heart of a UConn Husky. He's definitely has endeared himself, and he's going to have a big game, I think, tomorrow if Klingon is not going to have it. So that's where I see it, and hopefully they lift their trophy, and I'll be watching somewhere in Orlando, watching it in a bar, in a UConn alumni bar. Hopefully I don't jinx my team, but you got to watch it somewhere. I can't watch it at home.
That's right.
So, if it happens, but you know what? I do see UConn winning it all. And then I think Hurley got the coach of the year, I think, today. But and Tristan Newton also got the Bob Cousy Award, I think. So hopefully they can raise the banner, as you talked about. And like I said, Edey had a great season. I mean, but he's got one more game to prove. If he can get Purdue the championship. And then I will ask you one more trivia. Who did Purdue lose to back in 1969 when the last time they made the final?
Oh, well, yes. So that would have to be my UCLA Bruins back in 1969, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, and I think
John Wooden.
I think it would have been Lou Asendor was playing at the time. I don't think it was Kareem,
yeah,
right?
either Alcindor or Bill Walton, one of the two was there. Yeah, I'm not sure which one.
Yep. Hopefully, both your alma mater delivered in '69. Hopefully, my alma mater can deliver tomorrow. So
that's right.
We'll see. So I think that was good. And then one shout out, I do want to give it to the South Carolina women who went undefeated today by beating Caitlin Clark and Iowa. It was a close game, but South Carolina just showed the heart of a champion, and they get their 3rd championship. So just want to do a quick shout out to South Carolina women for capturing the women's title.
Likewise, kudos to them.
All right. So before we wrap up, I think this is our basketball wrap up. Dr. Dan and I will be back to start off a tradition like Masters.
CBS.
I did want to call out one thing. Akshay Bhatia actually won a tough playoff against McCarty in the Valero Texas Open. What a tournament it was! McCarty had a round of his life. Had 8 birdies, but we'll and Akshay punches his ticket to the Masters, which is incredible to see. So we'll be back to do the Masters preview. Get ready. Golf's major, the best major is here, and Dan will be in somewhere on the West Coast, and we'll do it. And so I thank Dr. Dan for providing a great thing. Hopefully, we also win our big pool in basketball. We've been very close, so we'll see if that happens too.
That's right.
All
Good
right.
luck to your Huskies.
All right, Dan. Appreciate it.
Bye. Good night.
Thank you for listening. Primo will be back soon.